"You're very beautiful," I said, and the moment the words left my mouth, every sound in the corridor died as if the station itself had decided to listen. She didn't respond immediately. The air between us thickened, humming faintly with the low-frequency resonance of the Enclave's aging life support systems, while the distant glow of a gas giant spilled pale violet light through the panoramic hull behind her. Her eyes, slightly larger than human, with a liquid opalescent sheen, fixed on me in a way that made it impossible to tell whether I had just made a terrible mistake or something far worse. Around us, the attendants froze. They were elegant in a way that didn't feel entirely natural, their long limbs held with deliberate control, their skin faintly luminous beneath the dim station lighting. One of them, standing several meters behind her, made a subtle clicking sound in the back of their throat, a warning, maybe, or disbelief. Another lowered their gaze entirely, as if witnessing something forbidden. I realized belatedly that no one was breathing. I added, rubbing the back of my neck, suddenly very aware of how out of place I looked in my grease-stained utility uniform. I mean, not in a weird way. Just objectively, statistically even. That was when she moved. Not away, toward me. Her expression didn't soften, not exactly, but something shifted, like a surface tension breaking. She reached behind her without looking and pressed her palm lightly against the control panel embedded in the wall. The door slid shut with a soft, final hiss, sealing us inside the chamber. The attendants didn't follow. That, more than anything, unsettled me, because they could have stopped her. I'd seen enough of this place in the last 2 days to know that nothing happened around her without layers of protocol wrapped around it like armor. And yet now, nothing. She stepped closer, the faint glow beneath her skin pulsing once, slow and deliberate, and then she lowered herself beside me on the narrow bench that lined the observation wall. Not across from me, beside me. Close enough that I could feel the subtle shift in temperature, cooler than human, like standing near polished stone that held no warmth of its own. I swallowed. "Okay," I said quietly, glancing at the sealed door. "I'm starting to think that meant something different here." Her gaze remained forward, fixed on the endless swirl of the gas giant outside, but I could feel her attention settling on me in ways that had nothing to do with sight. "You spoke without calculation," she said at last, her voice smooth, almost musical, but carrying an unfamiliar cadence that made each word feel carefully placed. "No preamble, no ritual, no intent to gain position." "Yeah," I said, "that's kind of my whole brand." A faint pause, then, unexpectedly, something almost like a breath of amusement. It wasn't a smile, not quite. But the tension in the room shifted just enough that I could finally inhale again without feeling like I was trespassing. Outside the chamber, I noticed movement, shadows passing behind the translucent sections of the door. They weren't leaving. They were watching. Of course they were watching. I leaned back slightly, trying to look more relaxed than I felt. "So just for context," I added, keeping my tone light, "where I'm from, that's usually followed by either a thank you or a very quick exit. Not whatever this is." She turned her head then, slowly, her eyes meeting mine with a level of focus that felt almost surgical. "In my culture," she said, "words spoken in grief space are never casual." "Grief space," I repeated. "That sounds specific." Her gaze didn't waver. "This chamber is bound to memory," she said. "It is where I come to remain with what I have lost." I blinked. Oh, that explained the silence, the stillness, the way the attendants had reacted like I'd just kicked open something sacred. I shifted awkwardly. "Right, so maybe not my best timing." "No," she said, another pause, then softer. "But not incorrect." That caught me off guard. I studied her for a moment, noticing the details I'd missed before, the subtle asymmetry in the glow beneath her skin, the way the light dimmed slightly near her chest, like something there refused to fully illuminate. Mourning, maybe. Or something biological tied to it. "You don't get told that much, do you?" I said, her expression changed again, this time more visibly, not offense, not pride, recognition. "No," she said quietly, "not since he died." The words hung between us, heavier than anything that had come before. Outside, one of the observers shifted abruptly, their silhouette flickering as if startled by the admission. I could almost feel the ripple of unease spreading through them. I exhaled slowly, looking back out at the gas giant, giving her space without moving away. "For what it's worth," I said after a moment, "I didn't say it because I thought you needed to hear it." She tilted her head slightly. "Then why?" I shrugged, because it was true. Silence again. But this time it wasn't suffocating. It settled, Beside me, I felt the faintest shift, her shoulder just barely moving closer. Not enough to touch, not yet. And somewhere beyond the sealed door, beyond the watching eyes and the quiet panic of whatever system of rules I had just accidentally broken, something far larger had started to move. The door didn't open when it should have. I noticed at first not because I tried to leave, but because the ambient tone of the chamber shifted, barely audible, a fractional change in frequency that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. Systems adjusting. Locks reinforcing, somewhere beyond the wall, footsteps gathered instead of dispersing. "They're not going anywhere, are they?" I murmured. "They are waiting," she replied. "For what?" Her gaze drifted toward the sealed door, and for the first time since I'd met her, there was something unmistakably human in her expression. Uncertainty. "For me to decide what you are." I blinked. That feels like a lot of responsibility for a guy who fixes broken oxygen filters. "You are not being measured by your function," she said. "You are being measured by your effect." "Yeah," I muttered. "That sounds worse." A soft chime echoed through the chamber, delicate but insistent. She didn't move at first, but the light beneath her skin shifted again, brightening slightly along her collarbone like a signal responding to a call. "They will not wait much longer," she said. "Who exactly is they?" I asked. She stood then, fluid and composed, though I noticed the faint hesitation before she turned away from me, as if leaving required more effort than approaching had. "The House Council," she said, "and those who believe I should not be allowed to decide anything at all." The door slid open. The corridor beyond was no longer empty. 5 figures stood waiting, their presence filling the space with a kind of controlled gravity. They were like her, but sharper somehow, features more defined, expressions less restrained. Their elongated forms were draped in layered garments that seemed to shift color subtly with the station's lighting, and their eyes were fixed entirely on me. Not curious, not exactly, assessing. One of them stepped forward, taller than the rest, their skin carrying a colder, almost silver-toned luminescence. "You remained," the figure said, their voice carrying a harmonic undertone that made it feel like more than one voice was speaking at once. Inside a grief-bound chamber, I raised a hand slightly. In my defense, I didn't know that was a rule or a category. A flicker passed through the group, some kind of silent exchange. One of the others tilted their head, studying me as if I'd just said something deeply inappropriate or unexpectedly clever. "He speaks plainly," another said. "He speaks without awareness," a third countered. "Same thing where I'm from," I added. That earned me something close to a reaction. One of them made a sharp exhale through their nose, the alien equivalent of a suppressed laugh, quickly masked by a shift in posture. The tall one didn't react at all. Instead, their attention shifted to her. "You allowed this," they said. It wasn't a question. She stepped forward, placing herself not in front of me but slightly to the side, close enough that the distance between us was unmistakably intentional. "I did." A pause. Then, he spoke truth in a place where only echoes remain. The words landed heavily. I felt it ripple through them, the tension tightening, recalibrating. Whatever rules governed this place, we had just stepped outside of them, and they didn't know what to do about it. The tall one's gaze returned to me, sharper now. "Human," they said. "State your designation." I hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. "Maintenance technician, environmental systems, 3rd rotation contract." "That is your task," they said, "not your designation." "Okay," I said, "then Daniel." Another flicker passed through the group. "They assign identity to themselves," one of them murmured, almost to themselves. "Convenient," another replied. I crossed my arms lightly. "You guys do." "We are given form," the tall one said. "Identity is inherited." "Right," I said. "Sounds efficient, also kind of stressful." Again, that subtle shift. Confusion, maybe, or the beginning of something else. Interest. The tall one took a step closer, and I became acutely aware of how outmatched I was, not physically, but structurally. These weren't just individuals. They were part of something larger, something layered with history and expectation I couldn't even begin to understand. And yet, they were reacting to me. "You altered her state," the tall one said. I glanced at her. "I gave a compliment." "You disrupted a sealed pattern of grief maintained for 12 cycles." "That sounds like a design flaw," I said before I could stop myself. Silence. Sharp, immediate, dangerous silence. I winced slightly. "Sorry. That probably not the right phrasing." But then, unexpectedly, she spoke. "He is not wrong." Every head turned toward her, including mine. The glow beneath her skin brightened, not erratic this time, but steady, stronger than before. Grief is not meant to be preserved indefinitely, she continued. It is meant to be transformed. The tall one's expression tightened, the first real crack in their composure. You speak differently, they said. I feel differently, she replied. Another pause, heavier than the last. And then the shift happened. Not in the room, in them. I could see it. The recalculation, the subtle realignment of whatever internal framework they used to understand the world. And somehow, impossibly, I was at the center of it. One of the figures stepped closer, circling slightly to get a better view of me. He does not carry the markers, they said. No genetic resonance, another added. No augmentation signatures. No political alignment. I raised a finger. I did once get banned from a coffee place back home, but I don't think that counts. That did it. A visible reaction this time. One of them actually turned their head away, shoulders shifting in what was unmistakably amusement. But the tall one remained focused. Then explain, they said, their voice lower now. Why the predictive systems have flagged you as a variable of consequence. My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I said slowly. The what systems? A faint hum filled the corridor, deeper than before, resonating through the structure of the station itself. Behind them, the lights dimmed momentarily, then stabilized. The tall one didn't look away from me. Our empire does not rely on chance, they said. Every deviation is observed, every anomaly is measured. Their gaze sharpened. And you, human Daniel, are not behaving like a statistical insignificance. I opened my mouth, then closed it again, because for the first time since I'd arrived here, I didn't have a joke ready. And beside me, I felt her presence shift again, closer, steadier, as if whatever was coming next, she had already decided where she would stand. For a long moment, no one moved, as if the station itself was waiting to see whether I would break under the weight of something I didn't even understand. I fix air systems, I said finally, my voice quieter now but steady. I don't predict empires, I don't alter destinies. I just said something honest to someone who looked like she hadn't heard it in a long time. The tall one studied me without blinking. That is precisely the anomaly. A low tremor rolled through the corridor, subtle but unmistakable. The lights flickered again, this time longer, and somewhere deep within the station, a system alarm began to hum beneath the threshold of hearing. One of the others turned sharply. External interference, they said. Signal breach across the lower rings. Another voice followed, tighter. Security grids are being overridden. The tall one didn't look away from me. Of course, they murmured. The timing aligns. My stomach tightened. That doesn't sound good. It is not, she said beside me, her voice calm but colder now, focused. Those who oppose my position will not allow uncertainty to exist. By uncertainty, I said, glancing between them, you mean me? Yes. Great. The tremor hit harder this time, enough to make the wall panels vibrate. The translucent door behind the council flickered, briefly revealing flashes of movement, figures running, light distortions, something tearing through the station's controlled symmetry. Containment failure on ring 3, one of them said. No, another corrected, their voice sharpening. This is targeted. The tall one finally shifted their attention, turning toward her. You see now, they said. Your deviation invites collapse. But she didn't retreat. If anything, she stepped forward. Or change, she replied, another tremor closer. A sharp crack echoed down the corridor as a section of the far wall split open in a cascade of sparking light. Through the rupture, I caught a glimpse of something moving. Sleek, armored figures with darker, more jagged features, their eyes glowing with a harsher, predatory light. Not like the others, not like her. Opposition forces have breached the enclave, one of the council said, their composure finally breaking. They're moving directly toward this chamber. Of course they are, I muttered. Why wouldn't they go for the one place I'm standing? One of the figures turned to me sharply. You should not remain. Yeah, I said, I'm getting that feeling. But I didn't move, because she hadn't. The attackers surged closer, their movements fast and precise, cutting through the corridor's defenses like they'd been mapped in advance. The air shifted, pressure dropping slightly as systems struggled to compensate. And in that moment something clicked, not in them, in me. I looked past the council, past the advancing figures, to the subtle distortions in the wall panels, the flickering lights, the inconsistent hum of the station systems. Your atmospheric grid, I said suddenly. No one responded. I stepped forward anyway, pointing toward the damaged section. They're not just attacking physically, they're destabilizing your environmental controls. Pressure shifts, oxygen variance, they're forcing your systems to fight themselves. The tall one turned back to me, eyes narrowing. Explain. I don't have time to explain, I said. I just need access. A hesitation, brief. Then, she moved. Grant it, she said. The command carried weight, real authority, the kind that didn't need to be repeated. One of the council hesitated only a fraction before extending their hand, interfacing with the wall. A panel slid open beside me, revealing a complex lattice of alien circuitry, beautiful, intricate, and completely unfamiliar. I stared at it for half a second. Okay, I said under my breath. That's not ideal. Behind us, the attackers were nearly through the final barrier. You claimed function, the tall one said. Demonstrate it. Right, I muttered. No pressure. I reached in anyway. Different system, same principles, flow, balance, redundancy. I traced the energy lines, ignoring the alien architecture and focusing on what mattered, the pattern beneath it. They were overloading specific nodes, forcing the system to reroute inefficiently, creating cascading failures. Got you, I said quietly. I bypassed the corrupted nodes, rerouting manually, forcing the system into a simplified loop, less efficient but stable. The hum of the station shifted immediately, smoothing out, the pressure stabilizing, the flickering lights snapping back into consistency. Behind me, the attackers faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. The council reacted instantly, their movements no longer restrained. Energy fields flared to life, precise and controlled, intercepting the advancing figures with calculated force. The corridor erupted into motion, light, sound, and controlled violence, but this time it was balanced. Contained, I pulled my hand back, exhaling. Okay, that should hold, probably. Silence followed, not the heavy, suffocating kind from before, something else. The attackers were gone, contained or retreating, I couldn't tell, but the immediate threat had passed. Slowly, the council turned back toward me. Different now. The tall one stepped closer again, but the sharpness in their expression had changed, reshaped into something far more complex. You stabilized a system you do not understand, they said. I shrugged weakly. I understood enough. Another pause, then. He identifies patterns without inherited knowledge, one of them said softly. He acts without directive, another added. He intervenes without seeking gain. The tall one's gaze shifted to her. And you chose to trust this. She didn't hesitate. Yes. The word settled over everything. Final, decisive. I looked between them, suddenly very aware that something much bigger than a station repair had just happened. So, are we good? I asked, a strange question, but it got a response, not from the council, from her. She stepped closer again, this time without hesitation, until the distance between us was gone entirely. Her presence was steady now, no longer dimmed by grief, the light beneath her skin clear and unwavering. You changed the outcome, she said quietly. I shook my head. I fixed a system. You reminded me I could act, she corrected. That landed harder. Around us, the council watched, not with suspicion now, but something closer to understanding, maybe even respect. The tall one inclined their head slightly. The predictive systems were correct, they said. Not because of what you are, but because of what you do. I let out a small breath. Yeah, still just a guy who fixes things. She looked at me then, and this time she did smile, subtle but real. In my world, she said, that is not just anything. Outside the chamber, the station steadied, its systems humming in harmony once more. The watching figures had dispersed, but not out of dismissal, out of acceptance. And as she reached past me, her hand brushing lightly against mine before pressing the panel. The door closed again, not to hide, not to isolate, but to choose. And this time when she sat beside me, she didn't carry grief with her. Only certainty. And somewhere far beyond the station, beyond politics and predictions and the fragile balance of empires, something had already begun to change.